Hello and welcome to today's meeting of Democrats of Greater Tucson. My name is Larry Bodine. I'm the president and I will be your host today. We have an interesting speaker lined up to hear, and that is Chris Mathis. He is seeking the appointment to fill Randy Fries's seat. So let me tell you a little bit about our speaker, Chris Mathis. We're at a particularly crucial time in Southern Arizona because our LD9 incumbents, Dr. Fries and Pamela Powers-Hanley, are not seeking re-election. So Chris is asking for our support in the upcoming appointment to Randy Fries's seat. And he says he'll also be a candidate in 2022. He's got a really nice legal, legislative, and personal background that'll put him in a position to hit the ground running in Phoenix. And as you know, Arizona faces a lot of imminent threats that Chris wants to address, and that includes reproductive rights, voting rights, water resources, and the chronic underfunding of education and the ongoing Republican assault on our education system. And with that, the floor is yours. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you to all of you for being here today and to Democrats of Greater Tucson for having this great forum. I also look forward to coming to the Drinking Democratically this week. So I'm Chris Mathis. I am, as Larry mentioned, running for the appointment to the LD9 vacancy created by Randy Fries stepping down. I'm also a candidate, as he mentioned, in August. Some of the folks who are going for the appointment are going to run in August, some aren't. But there are a number of us. I think there's something like 12 of us, depending on how you count. So, and that those of you who aren't LD9 folks, that election will occur on Saturday. So, as Larry mentioned, I am a lawyer. I also have a legislative background, and I think that my legal background, my legislative background, and my personal background position me at this moment to hit the ground running in Phoenix, which I think is really going to be important, given the fact that not only Randy Fries is leaving, but as Larry mentioned, Pam Powers-Hanley isn't running again. Possible that we'll also have an open Senate seat. And of course, a number of other people, as we see almost every day, are leaving the legislature. So I think having someone in that role who has some experience is valuable. So let me tell you a little bit about that, a little bit about my background. As I mentioned, I am a lawyer. I'm an elder lawyer. I've been practicing elder law in Tucson for 15 years. I also teach a couple courses at the University of Arizona College of Law. I teach a course on healthcare law and policy having to do with the regulatory and legal fundamentals of healthcare business. I also teach a course on aging in America. In my law practice, in elder law practice, really what I do on a day-to-day basis is I help people navigate the system that we have in the United States that folks have to navigate when they get older. So I help people with Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, long-term funding, trying to figure out what the best housing setting is. And I also do estate planning. And so in the course of that work, I really interact with both the state and federal government a fair bit. Also, in addition to legal practice, I've done some legislative work. Over the course of the years, I've worked in the Illinois General Assembly, originally from Illinois, my wife and I from Peoria, Illinois. So I worked in the Illinois General Assembly. I've worked in the United States House of Representatives, did a stint in the British Parliament, which was a very fun time. And then I also was the healthcare legislative assistant for Senator Chuck Hagel from Nebraska. And I did that job for a few years. So I handled healthcare issues for then Senator Hagel, and in addition to Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and those issues, I staffed the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, and also the Senate Special Aging Committee. I may be new to most of you, but I actually was an elected, at that time it was LD26, but an elected PC in 2010. I was the campaign treasurer for Nancy Young-Wright and helped Nancy with her campaign. I'm happy to say Nancy has endorsed me for the appointment and in August. And so I was doing that work and became an elected PC, then went to the state convention in early 2011. And then my wife was chosen to be the chair of the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission. And at that point in time, it seemed that it was appropriate for me to step down from any partisan role, not just then, but really for 10 years. And so I did that and tried to focus on helping her with her volunteer job. And of course, have stayed interested and engaged in other ways. But now that she, as you all know, is no longer chair, it seemed like it was time to get back into a political role. So that's my background as far as that goes. As far as my academic background, as Larry mentioned, I in addition to the legal and undergraduate degrees, which I got at the University of Illinois, and also proud of the Illinois public schools all the way up. I was able to go back in the past few years and do some academic work that I'd always been interested in doing. I was able to get a master's in public administration degree from the Harvard Kennedy School, a master's in public health degree from the Harvard School of Public Health. And then in between those two degrees, I was able to do some work in healthcare policy at Harvard Medical School, which was a great opportunity. It also has given me a much better appreciation for the current student debt crisis. And having gone to state schools, I didn't have student debt before, and now I have some. And that's something else. I think that's more of a federal issue, but it's something else that needs to be addressed, and I hope will get addressed shortly. So I think that I think all of the both the legal, legislative, and personal experience, I think, position me to hit the ground running, as I said, in Phoenix. And so I've already been thinking a little bit about it, maybe putting the cart before the horse, but trying to get involved in the committee structure up there if I did have that opportunity coming up in January. I think that committees I'd be interested in would be Health and Human Services, Education, Government and Elections. There are some other ones I think that are interesting to me as well. I think another important aspect of my candidacy is that in having gone through the redistricting experience with Colleen, I have a pretty good sense of what these Republicans in Phoenix these days are about. A lot of the folks who were very hostile to the redistricting commission 10 years ago are still there. Just to name a few, there's the guy, John Kavanaugh, Vince Leach, who is, as you guys know, a current representative from Southern Arizona. Of course, Andy Biggs is no longer in Phoenix. He's now in Washington. But a lot of these guys are still around, and they were there 10 years ago. And it was a difficult time to be working on redistricting in Arizona, especially in our household. And I think that it's important to have gone through that experience, because I think that it's important to understand what the job of, especially a Democratic legislator, is right now, what it's like, what that job is like in Phoenix. And I think that it is, I think it can be pretty tough. And I think that there are aspects of it that are a little bit like walking into a buzzsaw. And I think there are aspects of it that are a little bit, I don't know what I don't want to use too overblown a term, but a little bit soul crushing. And, you go up there with all these ideas, and there's so many things that we can do to make the state better. And instead, on a daily basis, you have to deal with the stuff that is coming out of the Republican caucus. So I think having a sense of that, what that's like, having that buzzsaw essentially outside our front door there for a few years is valuable. And also, I have to say there are a number of great people who have applied for the appointment, and I think there'll be great people who are running in August. And everybody has diverse and interesting skill sets. It's been a treat to meet some of the folks. Some of them I knew already, but I think we're really fortunate to have so many good candidates. As I say, I think in my case, it's just really the experience that that may set me apart. So to talk about issues a little bit, I think that there are really a few imminent threats that will need to be dealt with right after the first of the year in Phoenix. The first, as you guys know, is a threat to reproductive rights. This Texas law is from a legal perspective, it's sort of kind of hard to fathom. It's designed to flummox appellate courts, and it's designed to take away a constitutional right that we've had in the United States for almost 50 years. And there are a number of folks who, maybe the majority of the population in the United States, who's never been in an environment that was the pre-Roe v. Wade environment. And so this Texas law is essentially using the court system and the civil court system to take away the right to an abortion in the United States. The reason I mention it is because it's coming our way because of the posture that the Supreme Court has taken, sort of refusing to stop it, even though even Chief Justice Roberts understands what a bad deal this is, not just for reproductive rights, but for any right. This kind of structure where somehow you have this ability in civil court to take away a constitutional right it's really not a good idea. In any case, that's going to be coming to Arizona. There's no question that Kathy Herod and the folks up in Phoenix will be introducing a bill. I think probably an identical bill after the first of the year in the legislature. So that's one. The other imminent threat relates to voting rights, and as we've seen, the Republicans these days are really focused on taking away our voting rights, and very with a surgical precision, and it's a surgical precision to take away voting rights, not just of Democrats, but of minority populations specifically. And it just is, to me, antithetical to what the United States is all about. The majority in Phoenix was successful in getting our permanent early voting list changed to, I guess, a 2-year early voting list at the end of session last time. There were some things that got beaten back, but I think that's going to be coming. All those bad bills that didn't get out of the legislature last year, I think, are going to be coming back right away after the first of the year. So there are imminent threats to reproductive rights, voting rights. The other imminent threats relate to water rights, and to our water rights as Arizonans, and just to water and climate. And I think there's actually been some really good coverage in the Daily Star just the past couple of days about really, unfortunately, the dire straits that we're in with respect to the cap allotment, the Colorado River, Lake Mead, Lake Powell are at about a third of capacity. There was some really interesting stuff in the paper yesterday that talking with Brad Udall, water rights, a good Tucson political name and water rights expert in Colorado, about how he thinks that even the current projections, which are not good, are overly rosy, and that we should be more cautious in our projections. And so in any case, so that is something else that I think needs to be dealt with and this is an all hands on deck kind of a thing. This has to be dealt with in the legislature, but it also has to be dealt with in the executive branch. And it's something that shouldn't be it shouldn't be a partisan issue. So we'll see what happens with that, but that's something that I know all of you are very concerned about, something I'm really concerned about, even more so after taking a look at the paper this weekend. So the other issue that is just a chronic issue in Arizona, again, as you guys know, is education funding. And I had kind of been under the impression after the great effort that was made for Red for Ed, the past couple of years, that we had gotten to a point where we weren't still 50th in teacher pay. But looking into these issues, it seems that there's different ways to measure it, but we are still 50th in teacher pay. And that is just unacceptable. And I was at a conference in the Flynn Brown Fellows Conference last week, talking to some folks who do education work. And there's so many different moving parts with education, so many things that need to be addressed, and so many things to be concerned about. But on a top, just on a 30,000 foot level, it is just straight out not acceptable for Arizona to be 50th in teacher pay. It's not acceptable for Arizona to be maybe 49th, but probably 50th. If you count DC, maybe we're worse in education funding. And this is just something that needs to be addressed, and I think needs to be stressed. Let's try to get at least to the middle. And what would be wrong with a situation where Arizona was in the top 10 with respect to all of this stuff? So I know there are a number of complications. I was just reading this morning the Arizona Supreme Court opinion that came down with respect to Prop 208 in the past couple of weeks. And there's the education expenditure clause of the Arizona Constitution, which is something that I didn't know existed, that apparently was put in 1980 and sort of caps expenditures. And it seems like something that we need to take a look at in addition to all the rest. So I know all you guys are familiar with this, but it's just as somebody who is passionate about education and has just been reviewing all these issues, I'm sort of freshly outraged by that situation. The other area that I've done a lot of work in is healthcare. And I think certainly what we need to do, in a way, this is looking up a bit, because we finally have after 4 years, an administration, presidential administration, that's trying to leverage and build on the Affordable Care Act. There's been some good news actually recently with respect to the number of folks who have sought exchange plans in Arizona. They're the navigators that help people find those plans and help people know what they're eligible for. There's more of those. So that's all good news. I think my concern, and this stems largely from my elder law practice, is the lack of, again, it's a chronic lack of, it's a state problem, it's a federal problem, regulation of and policing of long-term care settings. And we've seen some really horrific cases come really from everywhere, but certainly there's a case, the Hacienda case, came out of the Phoenix area. And it is just a function of there are just really too few eyes on this issue. And it's something that I think could be addressed by pressure in the legislature. I think some work has been done already. I've looked into it a bit, but there needs to be more. And we just need to, it's not acceptable. And my entire career has really been devoted to figuring out how best to handle the retirement of the baby boom generation. The huge, a little bit, I'm just in Gen X, but it's just a huge cohort of folks. And the current system that we have for nursing home regulation is just not acceptable. It's not adequate. I remember being in a Senate hearing 20 years ago, and it wasn't acceptable or adequate. Now we have so many more folks who are in those care settings. So on healthcare, I think that's an imminent. Well, it's a chronic issue, but I think it's also something that's imminent if you're in those care settings. So those are my initial thoughts on policy areas. I think another important aspect is that I have, as you folks may know, Chuck Hagel was or is, I think, still a Republican. As it happens, he was one of the two Republicans in the Obama cabinet, but he was a he was a Republican and I was a Republican. I was always a moderate Republican, but I was a Republican. And so that was 20 years ago. Since then, I've had a partisan journey. And I don't think I've changed that much. I was always very moderate to progressive on social issues. The practice of 20 years of the practice, 20 years, 15 years in Arizona of the practice of law have shown me that in a way that I didn't know, I think, when I started out practicing law, that the role of luck and fate in life, and the role of how important it is, oftentimes what zip code that you're born into, and it shouldn't be that way. And I think that right now, there certainly is only one party that's addressing those kinds of issues. I feel like the Republican Party is sort of doing the opposite of that. And so while I don't think I've changed that much as far as my views on a lot of stuff, I think the Republican Party just completely moved away from me. And so I'm very happy to be a Democrat. As I said, I was elected PC in 2010, and here we are. But I do that background. I've been a disaffected Republican. I've been a horrified Republican. And I think that's a better term to use for a lot of these folks, because a lot of people we know who are still nominally Republicans are basically horrified by what's going on. I've been an independent. I was an independent for a little while after President Obama got elected, but I just that wasn't enough, and so that's why I became a Democrat. But in any case, I have had that background. I think that might help in trying to find ways to work with folks in Phoenix who might be of the other party, and I think somebody who's done a great job at this is Senator Victoria Steele, who's done some really good work on some really important issues. And I spoke with her, and she said that her method is she just basically does the work and has handed it off. And it doesn't matter who gets the credit if you're doing good stuff. So I think that you have to fight for Democratic positions tenaciously, but I think you also have to seek out ways to work together for Southern Arizona, if appropriate. And I think that my bipartisan background may stand me in good stead as far as that goes. So that is my initial spiel, and I look forward to taking your questions. I'm still pretty new at this, so I'm easily stumpable. If I'm stumped, I will just say so and try to get back to you with an answer. But thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to chatting with you.
Thanks so much, Chris. We really appreciate all the points that you made. And I had a question for you right off the bat, Chris, and that is, what Republican legislators do you think you can develop a relationship with to get bills passed?
Well, you've stumped me already, Larry. I don't know. We've been having this conversation because of what's going on in redistricting right now. And as all you guys know, there's kind of been a lot of attention paid to the way the maps are getting drawn in Southern Arizona. And there's this new LD9 that's been proposed. And apparently the notion behind that is, from the Republican perspective, is that they think that somehow that formulation of the district is going to produce more moderate Republicans, or I guess more business friendly, really, is what they think they're looking for, Republicans, than the current LD11. And it's sort of unclear to me how that will result, because I think really what's going on with elected Republicans these days, Larry, is that there's a problem with the primary dynamic. And so I think there was one Republican that, at least that I'm aware of, who was elected in Southern Arizona over the past 10 years, who was a bit more moderate. And as you guys know, or at least if you agree with me, that was this guy, Ethan Orr. And Ethan, I think, was in there for maybe a term. And And the way where he came from was he was elected as a single shot candidate in LD9, which is a D leaning and increasingly D district. And so he came out of, he tailored his candidacy to be a more moderate Republican so that he could win in a D district. So if you're drawing a district that is whatever this LD17 is, 10 plus R safe district, it seems to me you're going to get somebody else who you're not going to be able to work with. So I don't know. I think that what I would do is make an effort to develop personal relationships with the folks who are interested in doing that on the other side of the aisle, and then make a judgment. But there certainly is no one that I have in mind at this point.
We have a question from Susie Anderson.
Randy was very strong on medical care for everybody. What is your feelings for medical care for all age groups, especially for children? We did have kids care that helped a lot, but I know we don't like to spend money on children in this state for some reason, education, no. So what are your thoughts on healthcare?
I am a big fan of everyone having access to quality, affordable healthcare. And I think that what we've seen is we do have in the United States a single payer healthcare plan that is, I think, the most popular healthcare plan in the United States, and it's called Medicare. So single payer, it's the federal government. And is it socialized medicine? Yeah, it is. It is socialized medicine. Is that bad? No. And so I think that to the extent that we can build on that Medicare model, where you've got, whether it is as a default payer or whether it is as the primary payer, that's what we ought to be striving to do. Because it seems to me what we should be trying to do is trying to figure out. I think that people, Americans, Arizonans, humans, have a right to quality healthcare. And this is something that the World Health Organization has noted. It's something that the United Nations has noted. And so to the extent that, we're all Arizonans are in those categories as they are, I think we should do whatever we can to leverage federal dollars with respect to healthcare. As you mentioned, kids care, do what we can to strengthen Medicaid. Arizona actually has a pretty good Medicaid system, at least in terms of flexibility. And now I think to some degree, because of the fact that the legislature has been more balanced the past 10 years, we've funded Medicaid up to that 133% of poverty level that the Affordable Care Act allows. And so we've been taking in all those federal dollars. But I think to answer the question, whatever we can do to leverage, whatever we can do to fully fund and leverage federal dollars for kids care and Medicaid, we should be doing. We should be doing whatever we can do to try to make sure there are a number of viable plans as far as the exchange plans under the Affordable Care Act. And of course, on a federal level, we need to continue doing whatever we can do to strengthen Medicare. And so, I think it needs to be, fully across the board, soup to nuts. One of the issues, and this gets, Larry, to the primary dynamic we were talking about, is I think a lot of these, and this is very different from when I was a Senate healthcare aide on the Republican side 20 years ago. 20 years ago, when I was doing that work, our position as the Republican caucus in the United States Senate was we supported something called the individual mandate. And of course, the individual mandate is the cornerstone of the Affordable Care Act. And it was a Republican position 20 years ago, believe it or not. Now, I think the folks that come out of these Republican primaries, I think they just have a fundamental disagreement with us on this. I don't think fundamentally they think the government should be involved in healthcare. And I don't think fundamentally a lot of them think the government should be involved in education. And I can't, it's hard for me to process that, but that's an issue. So that's what we're fighting against on healthcare. But I think that I think we need to do what we can across the board to make sure people have access to quality, affordable healthcare.
Next up, we have Dr. Barbara Warren. Go ahead, Barbara.
What are the issues that you think we need to address in Arizona on climate change? What are our concerns around climate change? What should we do about it? What can we do at the state level to address our changing climate and all the threats that it has for us?
Well, I think I think that there are one of the frustrating things is how many opportunities there are in this environment with climate change to try to change the system to take advantage of the moment as far as from having incentives with respect to alternative energy sources, incentives with respect to electric vehicles, incentives to make it easier to just leverage the clean energy economy in Arizona. So I think there are it's the old thing about, out of crisis comes opportunity. I think there are a lot of opportunities there for us to do that stuff. I think the real, in talking, getting back to water, which is the climate change issue. I mean, that's we're in a drought, but we would be in a similar boat, probably even if we hadn't been in the drought, but we're in a drought because of climate change, and so it's circular. But I think that I think there has to be a discussion, and this is something I think that the legislature would play a key role in. I think there has to be a discussion with the way that water is allotted in the state. And again, this is another thing where in learning a bit about this, really just in the past few weeks, there are such opportunities, and this gets to incentives. And I think there are ways to incentivize the agricultural community to utilize water in a different way, and not utilize flood irrigation, utilize drip irrigation. I think there are ways that we can incentivize that behavior with subsidies or credits or whatever else. So that's, again, I mean, I see it as it's a dire problem, but I think there are also some opportunities that can come from it. So it's kind of a, we'll see what happens. And of course, it's up to us to, we need to be clear-eyed about it, but I think we also need to move forward in a way that is smart and hopefully leverages some of the other great resources we have here in Arizona. The thing that I think so many people who move to Arizona, and I've heard people who are born in Arizona often wonder is, why isn't there more solar? It's Arizona. And so I think to the extent that we can offer whatever incentivization we can offer with respect to that is all to the good. So I'm not sure that specifically addresses the question, but
Could I just add a piece, putting your public health background hat on? One of the greatest threats to our survival here is the extreme heat and the fires that go with it. But people having to work outside and deal with extreme heat, all of us having to deal with temperatures that are lethal if we're out too long, with or without water. What could you do in the legislature to deal with protecting people from extreme heat?
Well, I don't know, Barbara. Let me ask you this: you've been working on the issue? Is there a thought that you have?
Yeah, there is a worker heat protection bill that's in the Congress. Congressman Grijalva introduced. We're trying to get a worker heat protection bill here in our state legislature. It hasn't gone very far so far. We're also working at the local level for outdoor worker heat protection. Is that something that you could champion and support?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, we'll watch you for that.
Yeah,
We'll be
I'd love to talk more about it with you also, Barbara.
Okay, we have a question from Bridget Richechi. Go right ahead, Bridget.
Hello, everyone. Some of you know me, some of you do not, but I've worked in the choice movement for decades. And Chris, you should not repeat what you said earlier, that Ethan Orr is a moderate. That's not going to help you in this campaign or any campaign going forward. Ethan Orr wants everyone to believe he's a moderate, and he clearly absolutely is not. He is vehemently anti-choice. So I would think carefully before you made a statement like that again.
Well, I appreciate that. I need to, and I may have misspoken there. I didn't mean to say that I consider Ethan a moderate, but I think that the business community in Tucson did, and that's what I was getting at. But I take your point.
Well, I wouldn't even put the words moderate and Ethan Orr in the same sentence. That is not going to help you in any way, shape, or form.
I hear you. I will alter my approach.
And with that, we're going to turn to Lillian Fox. Go ahead, Lillian.
A question and then one quick comment. What's your position on nuclear energy? Are you supporting that as a clean air option? So what's your position on nuclear energy?
That's a great question. I don't know that I have a position at this point in time on nuclear, and I'll say why. I have my wife has an environmental degree. We have a number of friends who work in the environmental space, and as I understand it, there's a bit of a split with respect to what people's views on nuclear are. Is it sort of better than some of the other approaches that we have with respect to fossil fuels, or is the risk not worth it? And I guess I haven't thought that much about it. I would say that I've been somewhat surprised because it hasn't been my area of expertise, but I've been surprised at some of the folks with thoughtful folks with environmental backgrounds that I guess aren't as against it as I would think. However, I remember being in grade school when 3 Mile Island happened and coming home from school and seeing that on TV. I remember those risks. So I appreciate the question. And it's something I need to think about. And I'd be happy to get back to you individually once I've had a little chance to ponder that.
Mike Bryan. Mike, have you got a question for us?
Yeah, in the chat, it was brought up what Chris's specific views are about enhancing teacher pay here in Arizona to retain teachers here, because retention of teachers is a big deal because we have pay differential of up to $10,000 with neighboring states. So a lot of people, they get a couple of years experience here and they move to another state, make $10,000 a year more. And so we have a sort of a brain drain out of Arizona. So I'd like to get your thoughts specifically about that issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's as I understand it, we're essentially facing in addition to these other things we've been talking about, we're facing a teacher shortage. So it is one other reason why this needs to be addressed quickly. There's a similar dynamic going on because something else I've been looking at is the situation that's happening in Southern Arizona right now with nursing, and largely because of the pandemic and other reasons, we're sort of seeing there's some overlap as far as because of what's going on now with visiting nurses and the need for visiting nurses in order to supplement folks who have been doing it here for a long time. There's this pay differential. Visiting nurses essentially in many cases get paid more than folks who have been doing the job a long time, and that's something else that needs to be addressed. And so not to pivot from the teacher question, Mike, but it reminds me of that one too. So I mean, I think
the Susan Dante, who asked the question originally in chat, was pointing out issues with RNs as well. So it's
great.
Right on point.
Okay, let's turn to Paul Stapleton Smith. He's got a question. Go right ahead, Paul.
What is your level of commitment, understanding that while our unions support that, this is for all workers, as are our heat standards, as are our public health protections? What is your commitment to our unions and the principles of organizing at the state legislature? What can you commit to help all of us organize everywhere in all spaces?
Well, thank you. So I'm an Arizona Education Association member. So I have I'm I guess a SEIU person, and I'm with you. I don't like all of this stuff we're talking about. Goodness gracious, if educators ever needed a union, it's in Arizona. And if nurses needed a union, it's in Arizona. And so I'd love to talk more about it, but I just don't. It just seems to me that these standards, the minimum wage, extreme heat, that's just basic fundamental fairness. To me, that's just it's all good stuff, and that's what we ought to be doing. And in another area, we just talked about nurses, but another thing that I was looking into long-term care issues that are pending right now. We've got this situation where healthcare aides oftentimes are making $12 an hour. Again, it's all connected. It gets to the retirement of the baby boom generation and the standards that we have, and it's just not acceptable. I think there's going to be some funding in the in Build Back Better for that's going to help with this, but even that's not going to be adequate.
Mike Bryan, you have a question. One more. Go ahead.
I do. This one is mine. One of the main concerns that I've had about state politics here in Arizona and across the country for a long time is the extreme division and polarity and the extreme separation between the parties and the way our electoral system works to exacerbate those differences and that polarization. Do you have any ideas you want to bring to the table regarding electoral system reforms that you'd favor?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Mike. And I do. There are a few that I think are worth looking at. One of those is some version of an open primary system. I know in discussions I've had with folks over the years that oftentimes people don't like top two as much. If you're from one party and the top two candidates wouldn't be from that party, people tend to not like it. I think there's another way to do it that's a top five approach. That's an interesting way to do it, and that would in the primary election, the top five vote getters, whether they're R, D, I, green, whatever, would move on to the general election.
Even just
November, and then
party primaries to independent voters, I think would certainly be in the right direction.
Right, exactly. And then in November you do ranked choice. I actually am interested in ranked choice and have done some work in that space. So I think those are two things. It was, as we were talking right at the beginning of the call, I mean, we have to be able to break through this primary dynamic, because that really is an issue in Arizona. I don't think it's an issue necessarily at all in Democratic primaries, but it's a heck of a big issue in the Republican primaries. And this is, the more extreme, nuttier candidate essentially wins those, and that's not good. So there's that. I think there also is one of the reforms that's often mentioned with respect to this stuff is having independent redistricting commissions. We talk about this a lot in our house, and one of the reforms, and I think we're seeing why this would be a good reform right now, I think would be to expand that from 5 folks with 1 independent to maybe 9 folks. So you'd have 3 Rs, 3 Ds, and 3 independents. And maybe instead of everybody getting chosen by the Commission on Appellate Court appointments, you could use ping pong balls or something like that. That's what they do in California. That gets to the Commission on Appellate Court appointments. That needs to be reformed as well. It's been stacked, as you guys know, by Governor Ducey. And I think there's ways, this is also something that can be done in the legislature to tighten up that language so that you have to a certain partisan mix and balance, and you also have to replace those people sooner rather than later. The governor's been able to slow walk that. And that's essentially why I think we have the redistricting commission that we currently have, because of what happened on the Commission on Appellate Court appointments. So I think those are all good things. Electorally, really those first two, I think could help quite a bit.
All right, Chris, we are out of time. And I wondered if you could sum up how people can get a hold of you. Do you have a website? And what can people do if they're interested in supporting your candidacy?
Well, thank you, Larry. And thank you all so much for the opportunity. So the best way to get in touch with me is right now is just through email. It's christopher.h.mathis@gmail.com. And that's my email address. I'm happy to chat by phone. Also, phone number 520-465-8290. A website is in the works. It's we don't have it yet. One of the things about this appointment process is it's a lot of stuff has happened pretty quick. And in a way, it's good because we'll get it done sooner than we might have otherwise for the August election. But there's some aspects where we aren't quite up and running yet. Hopefully, I'll have something up actually, maybe even this week.
Let's have some announcements. Kathy, why should people join DGT?
I want y'all to join Democrats of Greater Tucson because we are there. We are the Democrats who know what's happening when it happens. You can log on and go to the dgt.org, and where it says join now, you just join on in and you'll be taken care of on Act Blue. So it's very easy, very simple. And if you get joined up today, you'll get to participate as an active voter in our elections that are coming up in December. So I'll send it right back to you, Larry.
Thanks very much. Let's turn to Sandy Binion. Tell us about our speakers. I know you've got a lot of good ones lined up.
Next week, we have Sandra Kennedy, who is presently on the Corporation Commission and is running again to be reelected for the Corporation Commission. And she's going to speak to us about all the problems with electricity and water and all that coming up. Following that, we have Robert Winster, who is an attorney who is running for Arizona Attorney General. And then the following week, we have Lauren Kuby, who is actually running with Sandra. You know, you can vote for three of them. They're kind of doing a joint campaign together.
Thank you very much. Christina, we've got a party coming up in a couple of days. Tell us about that.
Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. So yes, this Wednesday, November 17th at Brother John's on Stone, we are joining together, have a little bit of Democratic talk, drinking democratically, happy hour there at Brother John's. We had a really good group last time. We had some new folks come in, and it's just great talking with people. Chris, our speaker today, was there, and it was nice to be able to talk face to face. So I'm hoping everybody that wants to join, and I did hear that, Craig, that you didn't register yet, but I'm putting your name on the list anyway. So I hope that everybody will go ahead and join us on Wednesday, a little, before the Thanksgiving holiday time. And if you have any questions, you can check that registration link that I put in the chat, and I hope to see y'all there. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Now I want to just take a minute, talk about the Democrats of Greater Tucson election, which is coming up on Monday, December 13. But because of Zoom, we're asking everybody to kindly state your interest if you'd like to run for a spot on the board. All the seats are open. We need to get your nomination, and it can be a self-nomination, by December 6th. And then we'll hold basically an election online, and we'll be using a system called Election Runner, which is much easier and less expensive to operate than Election Buddy, which I think a lot of you are familiar with. And then one final thought, and that is, if you want to vote at our annual meeting, you have to be a member by the end of today, November 15. So at close of business, we'll count the members, and as Kathy says, we hope you'll take part. Thank you very much, Chris. We're out of time, and we appreciate you coming to our meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to an end, and I want to thank everybody, all the good members who are here. Also to remind you, this is the last day that you choose to be a member and be eligible to vote in the December 13 election. And with that, I'll say so long. Goodbye, everybody.